The fairground buzzed with excitement as a group of friends played near the giant drop ride, laughing and taking pictures. Wendy, a timid girl with a cautious nature, was their designated photographer. As she checked the snapshots, an unsettling detail caught her eye. One of the lights on the high-altitude fall sign had flickered out, leaving behind an ominous message: high-altitude death. A chill ran down her spine, but she chose to keep it to herself. Her friends, too caught up in the thrill of the night, were eager to board the most intense ride at the park, the roller coaster. But as they moved through the line, the rattling metal pipes and the echoing screams of riders heightened Wendy's unease. She hesitated at the front of the line, voicing her fear, but her friends brushed it off, craving the front row experience. A coin toss settled the debate. Kevin, her best friend's boyfriend, would move to the back to accompany Wendy while the others took random middle seats. Frankie, more interested in getting footage of two attractive girls ahead of him, ended up at the very back. The moment the safety bars lowered, Lewis noticed his restraint wasn't properly locked. A ride operator gave it a quick push, securing it, unaware that this action caused a hydraulic pipe beneath to leak. Kevin grimaced as his fingers touched a wad of old gum stuck beneath the seat. Then the button was pressed. The ride lurched forward, chains clanking as the coaster began its slow, tension-filled ascent. Frankie, oblivious to Wendy's growing dread, pulled out his camcorder again, filming the sky-high climb. The coaster reached its peak. Frankie, caught in the adrenaline, shouted a string of expletives. Annoyed, the girls in front of him swatted at his camcorder. It slipped from his grip, tumbling onto the tracks below. The coaster hit the device. A sudden jolt. The wheels skidded. Safety bars loosened. Then, disaster struck. A sharp turn sent sections of the coaster flying off the rails. Lewis, flung from his seat, clawed at the metal for dear life. Kevin, acting on instinct, reached to grab him. But at that moment, a jagged metal plate ripped loose, slicing straight through Lewis. The coaster spiraled into chaos. Wendy gripped Kevin with every ounce of strength, keeping him from being thrown out. But their nightmare wasn't over. The ride's momentum came to a jarring halt on a vertical loop, leaving them suspended upside down. One by one, the other riders lost their grip, plummeting to their deaths. Kevin and Wendy desperately rocked the car, trying to regain balance. Just as they managed to swing it upright, Kevin attempted to sit back, but he didn't see the broken metal pipe beneath him. The sharp edge slashed clean through his body. Alone, Wendy's final scream tore through the night. As she was flung from the broken track, Wendy's eyes snapped open. She was back at the ride's entrance, the coaster still intact, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't just a nightmare, it was a warning. Wendy's hands trembled as she clutched Kevin's arm, her fingers brushing against something familiar, the same piece of chewing gum from her nightmare. A cold dread settled over her. Before she could process it, the roller coaster lurched forward. Panic surged through her. She screamed, her voice cutting through the noise of the park. "The roller coaster is going to derail! Stop it! Let me off!" Her desperation caught the attention of the ride operator. Annoyed but unwilling to take chances, he hesitated before finally raising the safety bar at the back. Wendy scrambled out of her seat, gasping for air. The moment she stepped off, Lewis scoffed, his face twisting in irritation. "Are you serious? You're wasting everyone's time!" Kevin stepped in, trying to defend her, but tensions flared. Heated words turned into a shoving match between him and Lewis. Other students rushed in to break it up, their voices a chaotic mix of frustration and confusion. The commotion was too much. The staff, fed up with the disruption, threw them all out of the ride. As the rest of the group was being pushed away from the ride, Wendy's scream of agony ripped through the night. Jason was still on board, trapped in a fate she had already foreseen, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Kevin hurried over, his face pale with urgency. He had discovered records of a plane crash from years ago, one eerily similar to their roller coaster disaster. Survivors of that tragedy had all died mysteriously one by one in the exact order of their seat numbers. But Wendy, still drowning in grief, refused to believe it. "This isn't funny, Kevin," she muttered, shaking her head. That night, desperate for comfort, she scrolled through the photos on her camera, looking at pictures of Jason. But what she saw sent a chill down her spine. In one image, the roller coaster loomed behind Jason, its structure forming the illusion of a blade piercing through his skull. In another, Ashlyn and Ashley were laughing while holding a toy, but flickering lights in the background gave the scene an eerie, blood-red tint At that very moment, Ashlyn and Ashley were sunbathing at a tanning salon. Their session was supposed to be routine, but the distracted salon owner, too busy chatting with his girlfriend, barely paid attention. He handed them the control and left, casually propping the door open with a bottle of sunscreen before stepping outside. Inside, the girls lounged in their tanning beds. One of them reached for a cold drink, setting it on a table beside her before grabbing a disc from a nearby shelf, unaware that the shelf was loose. Meanwhile, the weight of the sunscreen bottle gradually forced the door shut, locking them inside. As the machines hummed, condensation from the cold drink dripped onto a transformer below. A faint spark flickered, then the temperature surged. Ashlyn and Ashley shifted uncomfortably as heat intensified. Just then, a draft from the ventilation ducts rattled the room, knocking over a coat rack. The already loose shelf collapsed, sending a wooden board sliding into the machinery, jamming it. Panic set in. They pushed against the lids, but the beds wouldn't budge. Outside, the manager heard their screams and rushed back, only to find the door locked. Inside, the flames erupted, engulfing the machines. Trapped in a fiery inferno, Ashlyn and Ashley were burned alive. Wendy could no longer deny it. Kevin was right. The deaths of her classmates were being foreshadowed in the photos. And if death was following the seed order, then Frankie was next. Racing against time, Wendy and Kevin jumped into a car and hurriedly checked the photos for clues. But before they could analyze them, Wendy felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Something was coming. A truck was reversing towards them. Frantically, she pounded on the door, trying to warn the driver. But just as they thought they had escaped, another runaway truck from a nearby hill sped straight toward them. Trapped, Kevin honked frantically, signaling the car in front to move, but the driver only responded with an obscene gesture. With seconds to act, Kevin kicked the windshield, shattering it just in time for them to crawl out. They barely hit the ground before the truck collided. Frankie, standing helplessly in front of the car, never saw it coming. 1 second, he was there. The next, his head was gone. Back home, Wendy and Kevin frantically searched the photos, their stomachs twisting as they spotted the ominous fan they had overlooked. But it was too late. They needed answers, fast. Looking at the only seat photo they had, they realized 2 people were obscured by someone's hand, making it impossible to confirm the full order. Wendy suggested analyzing all the pictures, but Kevin hesitated. Instead, they focused on stopping the next death, their next target, Lewis. They found him at the gym, but he brushed off their warnings with a cocky grin. As Wendy tried to convince him, she noticed something chilling. The gym's logo, 2 crossed blades, matched the twin knives in the photo. The black bear sandbags nearby were also in the image. This was it, the location of the next death. But Lewis, dismissing their fears, continued his workout, taunting death itself. Wendy's stomach twisted with horror. She had seen it coming. She had tried to stop it, but death was relentless. They had no choice. They had to keep moving. Kevin and Wendy wasted no time. The next victims, a couple, Ian and Aaron, worked at a hardware factory. Because they had sat in the same row on the roller coaster and Ashlyn and Ashley had died together, they couldn't determine who would be the first target. Arriving at the factory, Wendy's heart sank. The entire place was a death trap. Hoping to break the chain, they urged the couple to take a few days off. But it was already too late. Fate had begun its merciless work. While organizing clutter, Ian accidentally knocked over a stack of boxes. At the same time, Aaron, setting down iron rods, unknowingly extended one too far. A dead nail shot straight through his skull. Aaron collapsed, dead. The factory erupted into chaos, and soon, Wendy and Kevin found themselves at the police station, forced to give statements. By the time they were released, 10 hours had passed. They were running out of time. Regardless of the missing faces in the roller coaster photo, Wendy knew they had to prepare as if the next deaths were already happening. Back home, she obsessively studied the pictures, searching for anything they'd overlooked. Then, a clue, a bracelet. It belonged to her sister Julie. Julie, who at that very moment was preparing to attend the school's fireworks gala. Panic surged through Wendy as she called her sister. No answer. She immediately phoned Kevin, who, luckily, was working security at the event. "I'll find her," he promised. "But Wendy, it's time to check our own photos." Wendy's hands trembled as she flipped to her picture. A pitch-black background. No clues. The only detail, she was wearing her school uniform. Kevin's picture was also black, but something was off. The camera's flash had overexposed his face, distorting his features. He looked as if fireworks were exploding against his skin. His stomach twisted. His death was coming tonight. At the festival, the final countdown began. A second later, fireworks ignited the sky. Sparks erupted in every direction. Meanwhile, a child threw a firecracker, spooking a nearby horse. The animal reared, yanking a wooden stake from the ground before bolting into the crowd. Kevin finally intercepted Julie, only for her to shove him away. Wendy arrived just in time to see her sister's rebellious glare. Then it clicked. The photo, the hand gesture, the position, the exact same moment. The horse was coming. Now Kevin shoved her aside, but the rope tangled around her ankle. The galloping horse dragged her across the ground, straight toward a spiked vehicle. Kevin acted on instinct, grabbing a nearby prop sword and slicing the rope just in time. Julie tumbled to safety as others rushed to control the panicked horse, but Wendy wasn't focused on the animal. She was staring at Julie's seatmate from the ride. As realization dawned on her, a second explosion erupted. The horse panicked again. The rope it carried snagged a flagpole. Perry turned to run. The flagpole impaled him mid-stride. Gas leaked from a ruptured pipe. Sparks from the fireworks met the fumes. Wendy barely had time to scream before the explosion rocked the festival grounds. Kevin was thrown backward, crashing against the pavement. Through the chaos of the festival, Wendy spotted Ian moving against the fleeing crowd. Her stomach twisted. Then, a sickening snap. The crane arm gave way. A massive billboard swung loose from above. Ian barely had time to scream before it came crashing down, reducing him to a mangled, unrecognizable pulp. The smoke settled. Wendy was still standing. Death had taken its due. She had escaped. 5 months later, the nightmare felt like a distant memory. Wendy and Julie boarded the subway on their way to visit their father. The rhythmic hum of the train should have been comforting, yet something felt off. Julie noticed her tense expression and scoffed. Then she saw Kevin, sitting alone in the corner. Wendy's breath hitched. Why was he here? A sinking dread curled around her stomach. Before she could say anything, a tiny rustling sound. A mouse, scurrying along the floor, dragging a piece of stolen chocolate. A single spark. The tracks violently shifted. The subway lurched. The entire world turned upside down. Bodies were thrown like rag dolls. And then, the tunnel lights flickered. A low, distant rumble. Wendy's blood ran cold. Another subway train was coming, and she was right in its path. Her breath came in short gasps. She wasn't dead yet. She had seen this moment before. The premonition. This was her final warning. She clawed for the emergency alarm, smashed it. The speakers crackled to life, but it was too late. This time, death wasn't giving second chances. Wendy managed to survive longer than expected by interfering, but death always corrects its plan. Ian's death should have been Aaron's, meaning the sequence was still reshuffled, not broken. The survivors only delayed their fates, not escaped them. The subway scene confirms this. No matter how much they try to outthink death, the end is inevitable.